Bills Mafia, don't adjust your screens. We are back. Me and Akeem Richens back for this big matchup for tomorrow night. Akeem, we were talking earlier, and we need to be back, right? I mean, this is probably a little teaser action for the
Mhm.
fans, but how you feeling? Chiefs won. They had 212 total yards. I don't know about that, but how you feeling heading into night before this big game with the Ravens tomorrow? How you feeling?
Uh, DM3, I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling good. We did see the Kansas City Chiefs do what they do and proclaim victory against the Houston Texans. And we go into our tomorrow night's matchup, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm confident. I'm thrilled. I've been hearing all week about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and the MVP and who's the better team and how the Baltimore Ravens performed week 4. I've been leading up to this moment tomorrow night all week. So I'm ready to get it started. I'm excited, DM3.
Yeah, I don't know if you're like me, but if you're on X, it's such a toxic place right now with the Ravens fans and the Bills fans. Now, I will say there are some toxic fans in just about every fan base, but I really hope the Bills win tomorrow. I really hope I don't hear from another Ravens fan until September because all of the shit they were talking after they won week 4, all the shit they were talking about the MVP voting, all the shit they've been talking this week. So we're going to break this stuff down. Me and Akeem have no script. This is off the script. We just want to come on here and talk like two Bills fans. We're going to break some things down. We're going to talk about pros, cons, players to watch, keys to the game, give some predictions and stuff like that. As we always start our show. Hey, Rich, where you want to start first, man?
It's we can, divvy between a multitude of topics between the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills in their particular matchup. But I want to start in the trenches with the Bills Ravens matchup. We hear a lot about, first of all, our Buffalo Bills. We play predominantly nickel on defense. Our nickel is our base defense. We play that about 80% of the time. That's third in the NFL. Meanwhile, the Ravens and their big offense, they run 11 personnel the most in the NFL, and their 11 personnel, excuse me, their 12 personnel is different than most, right? Where you have Patrick Ricard at fullback, that's 300 pounds. You have Derrick Henry, who's 250 plus pounds. And then they bring on extra linemen, just like Alec Anderson and the Buffalo Bills do as well. So let's talk about the battle in the trenches with the Buffalo Bills nickel-based defense against the big offense with the Baltimore Ravens.
It's funny you say that because we've been told all week that we're just not tough enough. The Bills are not aggressive. The Bills are not physical. I have a feeling, and this is just me. Sean McDermott learns from his past failures. I mean, is that can we agree on that? Sean McDermott doesn't often lose to the same team twice in one season. Now you could point out the Patriots before, Josh Allen was Josh Allen and the 2020 when they lost to the Chiefs. But to me, like you said, I think we need to start this game the way they started the game against the Lions. The Bills stopped the Lions on offense 2 drives in a row. They were able to get out in front and score and play with the lead. Now, back in week 4, we didn't have Matt Milano. We didn't have Terrell Bernard. We didn't have Taron Johnson. We didn't have, I don't think this defensive line was playing to the style that Bobby Babich wanted them to play to. So is it a test? Yes. But I like what I've seen from Sean McDermott this week. He seems like he's done no talking and he's just all about business. And I feel like, and I want to spend some time later in the show on Sean McDermott, but I feel like this might be a legacy game for Sean McDermott. Because if you can't get past the divisional round for the 4th year in a row, there's going to be some questions, right? So I don't know. First time play caller Bobby Babich in his first divisional game as the play caller. I think the team is going to be physical. I really think that we're going to see something that we do not expect. The Baltimore Ravens do not expect. The fan base, the national media. I feel like the Bills are going to be physical, and they're going to do some things to disguise, like you said, the nickel coverage. I think they're going to play some man. I think they're going to do a lot of stuff to get away from what they did week 4, which made it extremely easy for Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson to go up and down the field. What are your thoughts? Like, do you think that the personnel the Bills have, because everybody's been talking all week about this is a bad matchup for the Bills. This is just not a good matchup on paper, on film. What happened last time, the way the Ravens play bully ball. How do you feel? Is this a good or bad matchup, and you think the Bills can get physical enough to stop the run game of the Ravens? What's your thoughts?
At the end of the day, we're at a point where two teams are in the divisional round of the playoffs, and we like to look at matchup-based things in terms of the Baltimore Ravens offense, their rushing offense, and how dominant it has been throughout the course of the season against the Buffalo Bills and the defense that has been maybe slightly above average throughout the course of the season, and they had trouble stopping the run at times. So I can see where there's pushback, where you hear some people say, hey, the Baltimore Ravens are possibly a bad matchup for the Buffalo Bills. But like you said earlier, with the Detroit Lions, Sean McDermott and that Buffalo Bills defense, they was able to throw that first haymaker, throw that first punch, and get them off the field because they was able to do things defensively that the Detroit Lions and their offensive staff didn't see coming. And I do agree with you there. I do believe the Buffalo Bills can mimic that same sentiment in tomorrow's game on defense, doing things that the Baltimore Ravens probably haven't seen, and because they haven't seen it, are not prepared for it. So I do believe the Buffalo Bills defense can come out and surprise that offense. And when they do, can the Buffalo Bills offense do like the Detroit Lions game and capitalize? Right? It's one thing to stop them and catch them off guard, but the Buffalo Bills offense have to do their job and capitalize. And I think they can and will do so. And I want to say, while we're talking about, the trenches and the big offense against the Buffalo Bills nickel-based defense, let's not forget about the Buffalo Bills and who they missed in week 4, right? And that was Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, and Teron Johnson. Now, weight-wise, people are going to say, hey, well, the Baltimore Ravens can still move those guys off the ball. But you was missing 3 very good players, 3 leaders, 3 players that are excellent in coverage. And I think those things matter. And when you have these guys on the field, I think it just sets up the rest of the defense to be successful. The Buffalo Bills don't run, I'm going to say this and done. The Buffalo Bills don't run a base defense, but in week 4, they ran that base defense 26% of the time. Whereas in the rest of the games, it was 3.8% of the time where the Buffalo Bills ran that base defense. But against the Baltimore Ravens, you know who ran that base defense? Nicholas Morrow, Bill Inspector, and Dorian Williams. Yep. It's going to be a different talent and skill set back there for the Buffalo Bills the next game. So I do like our chances.
You brought up Dorian Williams, and this is how this show is going to go. I think I'm gonna pick something, and you're gonna something's gonna pop in your head. You're gonna say something's gonna pop in my head. So Dorian Williams has been really outspoken this week about how he played against the Ravens. If you don't like the outcome, fine. But a lot of people are talking about how he played in that game. He was physical. He was all over the field. The Bills can use Dorian Williams in a different aspect this game. He doesn't need to be that same player he was. If you want to put him in a 3 linebacker set, add him in there, sprinkle him in there to do different things. I want to talk about Ed Oliver. I saw some comments coming through, and if you guys are watching on Facebook, please, the comments are, I can't even keep up with them. You're watching on YouTube, drop comments, smash the like button, subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. I want to talk about Ed Oliver. I have a feeling that as the season progressed, we were all hard on Ed Oliver about where's the 2023 Ed Oliver. We saw some signs. There was a little bit here and there. There was a couple games as the season progressed where I feel like he got his legs back and he got more into. I just rewatched the Broncos game. he was very menacing in the Broncos game. He was very physical up front. He caused the pockets to be pushed back into Bo Nix's lap. I feel like this may be something where they're hearing all the chatter about how they couldn't do anything week 4 and Daquan Jones couldn't do anything week 4. And I feel like this might be an Ed Oliver type of game where he says, you know what? I'm going to put my hands in the ground and I'm going to disrupt every single play I can when I'm on the field. What's your thoughts on Ed Oliver? Is this something where we see something from him? What have you seen from him that may be like a jumping off point that makes you feel a little bit more positive about this defensive line? What's your thoughts on Oliver and Daquan Jones and the DTs? We'll get into the ends in a minute, but the DTs overall in this matchup.
They're going to have to, be prepared to play. They're going to have to bring their lunch pails in this game against the Baltimore Ravens. This Ravens team prides themselves. I've been seeing it a couple times by a number of different players that they believe they're the most physical team in the NFL. And while I'm not sure that's the case, I do agree they amongst the most physical teams in the NFL. So guys like Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones, I don't think we said his name too much this season compared to seasons past, but those two guys are going to have to play an excellent physical brand of football. Those two guys are going to have to show up, not necessarily in the stat sheet for Daquan Jones, but he's going to have to show up and take on those double teams and be successful penetrating on the point of attack so Ed Oliver can take advantage of his one-on-one matchups and bring guys like Derrick Henry and Justice Hill down. And not only are they playing against Derrick Henry and against the offensive line, they have to account for Lamar Jackson and his legs as well. So not only do they have to be a physical at a point of attack, but they have to keep their head up and understand what they're doing at each and every moment of the game and each and every play. Okay, we're collapsing the pocket here. If we're collapsing the pocket, let's make sure everybody's communicating and is on the same page. So therefore, if we do collapse the pocket and Lamar Jackson has an escape route, we have guys that's there and prepared for that as well. So it starts in the trenches. More specifically, I like where you went in the interior with Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver and those guys. They're going to have to show up Sunday for the Buffalo Bills to have success and ultimately win this game.
Yeah, and Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones have been outspoken in the media this week, which is, I'm not accustomed to that. I don't think any of Bills Mafia is accustomed to those two guys. They're usually very quiet, but Daquan Jones wearing a shirt that said fresh out of fucks because he's heard the noise and he's sick of hearing the noise. And for guys like him and Ed Oliver and that do the work so that the middle linebackers can get penetration and can get in the holes and the seams, I think this is a game where Sean McDermott is going to make an impression on the rest of the league saying, look, we understand that Derrick Henry ran for almost 200 yards. We understand that. Lamar Jackson didn't have to do anything. He made some nice plays. But I think this is a game, and I'm not saying it's bad if you have to put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands, but I think that is going to be the case. I feel like the Bills now, Henry's going to get his, right? Just like Lamar's going to get his. You just can't stop those guys 100%. It's like Michael Jordan and LeBron James. They're going to get theirs, right? They're just going to get theirs. But it's when you allow them to get theirs. Is it because they're playing from behind? Is it because they're being desperate? Is it because you've been controlling the line of scrimmage? I want to talk about, we talked about the interior. Let's talk about the defensive end situation, because I watched a lot of the Broncos game. Now, I understand the Ravens are a completely different team, the way they run their offense. They're a completely different team, heavy run dominant offense that they try to beat you up front. But I watched Greg Rousseau was wreaking havoc on the Broncos offensive line. It didn't show up in the stats, but he was pressuring Bo Nix. It seemed like every other pass play. To me, this feels not only like an Ed Oliver game, but this feels like a Greg Rousseau type of game, trying to set the edge. This feels like a Von Miller type of game. What are your thoughts on is it an advantage or disadvantage to the Bills or Ravens how our edge defenders line up against the Ravens offensive line? What's your thought?
It's definitely going to be a tough stretch assignment for the Buffalo Bills' entire defensive line, especially their defensive ends. Once again, everybody is going to have to do their 111 because there are a multitude of things that you have to worry about concerning the Baltimore Ravens offense. As more specifically, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry ran for 200 and the Baltimore Ravens as a team ran for 271 yards against the Bills. Derrick Henry rushed for 24 attempts, 109 yards, over 8 yards a carry against the Buffalo Bills. Lamar Jackson had 7 yards a carry against the Buffalo Bills. So the defensive line, in my opinion, they got to play a physical brand of football, but they also have to play what I like to call controlled chaos. Right, you want to be aggressive, you want to be a physical at the point of attack, but anything that you're doing on the defensive front, when you're doing it at a full speed and full aggression, you have to have a plan while doing so. And I think the Buffalo Bills, their defensive staff is going to mimic these sentiments throughout the course of the week. And I believe the Buffalo Bills, kind of like a couple of years ago, right? You just spoke about the Buffalo Bills players being more vocal than normal. A couple of years ago, before the Buffalo Bills faced the Baltimore Ravens in their first playoff meeting, Matt Milano was a lot more vocal than usual, right? It was that highlight tape of him going around Lamar Jackson. I believe earlier that season,
Yeah.
broke Matt Milano's ankles. And
Yep.
it was a highlight reel play for Lamar Jackson. And same Matt Milano came before the playoffs and said, you know what, I'm pretty confident that we can stop Lamar Jackson. And I'm sitting there like, bro, you just broke 8 of your ankles. How do you have the confidence to say that? But lo and behold, the Buffalo Bills defensive staff got those players prepared, mentally prepared, and physically prepared to play, and they had a plan, a precise plan, and they executed that plan. And the Buffalo Bills in 2025 are going to have to mimic that. They're going to have that plan and execute that plan against the Baltimore Ravens.
All right, a couple things here. Washington's up 17-14 on Detroit. 6 minutes left in the second. Interesting. And someone was asking about Zay Flowers. He's doubtful for the game, which I think that's 85% he's not going to play. But you know what? If he plays, he plays. You know, we defend who's on the field. And if he does play, he's not going to be 100%. So I have a weird feeling about this game, and we'll get into like predictions and stuff like that later on, but I don't feel like everybody else feels. Like a lot of Bills fans have this nervous aura about this game. Am I concerned with the Baltimore Ravens? Yes. But I also know that our head coach, say what you want about Sean McDermott. He's a guy, he's a creature of habit, and he learns from his past failures. I said that, to open the show. I have a really hard time seeing Derrick Henry run for 200 yards again, and the Bills just being completely just obliterated. If you watch that game back, it was that flea flicker that they tried to do, the trick play, and I think after that it was all downhill from there. But you talked a lot about Derrick Henry. I want to talk about the Bills' run game. So not a lot in the national media has been talked about James Cook. We get some sprinkles here and there of the ones that actually watch the games. But do you think that James Cook, seeing how he played against the 49ers in that weather, do you think that James Cook could actually be a huge key to this game? What's your thoughts on the Bills? Do you think they'll be able to get the running game going?
That's the hope, because that's the Buffalo Bills identity. They're damn near 50-50 in the run to pass ratio. And when the Buffalo Bills are running the ball and they do have success running the ball, it just opens up so much more of the offense for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. So yes, I do hope the Buffalo Bills can have some success running the football, kind of like earlier this season against the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs they was looked at, or they are looked at against as a stout run defensive team. But the Buffalo Bills have an identity of running the ball, and they consistently did so before breaking a couple of those runs. And I think the Buffalo Bills have to do the same thing against the Ravens. But I don't think the Buffalo Bills can dink and dunk all game long, if that makes sense. I do believe the Baltimore Ravens defense is a very good defense, and that is not a defense that you want to consistently 5, 7, 8 minutes off the clock, because there's no guarantee you are going to score on that defense playing. I don't want to say conservative, but if you don't have explosive plays within your offense. So in tomorrow's game, I do believe the Buffalo Bills have to stick to that identity of running the football and being efficient doing so. There are going to have to be some explosive plays in the mix involved with the Buffalo Bills offense.
24-14 Commanders. They just got a pick six. Are you kidding me right now? Woo! All right, so I hear what you're saying, but don't you think you want to have some clock control as well? I don't think it's going to be like the 41 minutes we saw against the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like you've been warming up Amari Cooper. You've been warming up Keon Coleman, getting him all these. Even Josh last game when they were up, I think it was 28-7, and he threw that goofy lob, tried to back shoulder, and it was in the middle of the field, and it was just like I think they were just kind of goofing around to see what they can do. I think, is this a time where and I said it in our group chat, and I said it on X, I think on Monday or Tuesday, this feels like an Amari Cooper game. He's your veteran. He's a guy that you haven't really had to rely on. Yes, he's warranting coverage, and he's probably freeing up Khalil Shakir's and Keon Coleman's and Mac Hollins and stuff like that. But do you feel like that's something not a lot of people are talking about, the Amari Cooper effect? Because we saw against Kansas City, he made some big plays against Kansas City. Now, he hasn't played it a ton. He hasn't gotten a ton. Like, we haven't seen a 15-target game for Amari Cooper. Is this a game where you think that we finally see the reap the rewards of the trade, even though I know he's got a small contract, but bringing him in to be that number one guy that can match up against anybody's, number one corner? And if so, what's the trickle-down effect you think from that?
So I was doing something Friday I rarely do, and that is watch media sports talk. But I'm glad I did for this particular segment, because Shady McCoy was on and he was talking about Andy Reid coming into big games like this. What Andy Reid always say coming into a big game. He says, your best players have to outplay their best players to get where you want to go. And Amari Cooper is a number one wide receiver in this NFL. He has over 10,000 receiving yards throughout the course of his career. He was picked up on October 15th because the Buffalo Bills was lacking the separation. And while he's played and made huge plays, one hand grabs here, touchdowns here, one hand grabs there, he hasn't had that statement game, that game that says, this is why the Buffalo Bills came and got me from the Cleveland Browns. And in tomorrow's game, it feels kind of like what Andy Reid and Sean McCoy has been saying. Our best players are going to have to show up, make plays, and outperform their best players. And Amari Cooper is one of our best players, if not the best wide receiver on our offense. So indeed, I believe he is the X factor of the game for the Buffalo Bills on the offensive side of the ball. And I believe he's going to make an impact in tomorrow's game. I also want to talk about Joe Brady a little bit, because you see guys like Patrick Queen and the Baltimore Ravens defensive group talk about how simplistic and how easy it is to defend a Buffalo Bills offense. And in my opinion, that's kind of a indictment to Joe Brady, a kind of slap in Joe Brady's face. So I'm going to be excited to see how he opens up the Buffalo Bills offense, how he gets the running game involved, Amari Cooper involved, and how he opens up the entire offense that is supposedly simplistic for the Baltimore Ravens defense. So I'm excited to see that matchup between Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, and Zach Orr, I believe the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, it's funny. Joe Brady interviewed 3 times in the last 2 days. The Bears, the Saints, and the Jaguars for their head coach position. Do you think that it at all will have an effect on his ability? Because if you think about it, I said yes initially when I was thinking about it earlier today, but then I thought about it. I'm like, this is his resume is going to be put on display even more so now. He might have already interviewed based off of his body of work, what he was able to do with Josh Allen, this offense, the pieces in place, scoring a record amount of touchdowns and points and all that stuff. But he's still in play for one of these positions. And the longer he goes, he may miss out on these positions. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Like, he's still putting things out on tape for these front offices that are looking to hire him. So I think you're right. I think the disrespect about the Bills offense in the national media, it's kind of funny because as I just mentioned, the Bills scored more touchdowns in team history than they ever had. They scored more points in team history. Now, granted, there's a 17th game, but James Cook with 18 total touchdowns this year, Josh Allen 40 total touchdowns. Mac Hollins is your leading touchdown reception leader or your guy. So I don't understand the disrespect that Joe Brady gets with, like you said, when in the preseason, everybody was talking about how it was completely opposite from boring. It was motion everywhere and who's getting the ball and this guy's going here and it's all disguise and things like that. I think that we're going to see some stuff that we haven't seen yet because, like you said, there's film from the first Ravens game. There's film on Joe Brady from the rest of the season. These defensive coordinators and the Ravens defense has gotten a lot better as the season has progressed. It has gotten a lot better the last 8 or 10 games. It's become more of the Ravens defense that we're accustomed to. But I just, like, when I started asking you about Amari Cooper, I think if you're putting your second best corner on Amari Cooper, that's going to be a problem. I mean, you're already going to have, Shakir's going to be wrapped up with their number one. So I don't know. I think this is going to be a game where I feel like it's an Amari Cooper game. I just feel like he's going to get more targets. There's going to be some bigger plays to him. And I feel like the run game and the pass action is going to set this all up. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. All right, anything else you want to touch on the offense before we keep moving?
I'm not. I guess it's a transition because I want to get this. I'm interested to hear your analysis or your feedback to the question I'm going to ask you. Right, because we spoke about Joe Brady and his offense and what we hope to see in tomorrow's game. Let's flip the script about with the coordinators right quick. On the other side, for the Buffalo Bills, you have Bobby Babish, first year defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, and it's chess, not checkers at this point of the season, right? You have Bobby Babish going up against Todd Monken, offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, who's getting looks as a head coach as well, he has that offense dealing. He's an experienced offensive coordinator. Before Baltimore, he won back-to-back national championships with the Georgia Bulldogs in college. Is this a significant advantage? Is this something that we should be worried about that we're not talking about? And that's the matchup between Todd Monken, the experienced offensive coordinator, and Bobby Babish, first-time offensive coordinator, first time going into a divisional game. How should we feel about both coordinators in that retrospect?
The last part of your statement is why I'm not concerned, because it's a divisional playoff game, and Sean McDermott's blueprint will be all over this game plan. If Bobby Babich is the one that you want to say is there with the headset on and he's up in the booth calling the plays and he's looking at the film as the game's progressing, Sean McDermott is going to, if he has to, will take over this game. If he hasn't already given Bobby Babich 99.9% of what he wants to do, because like I said already twice, McDermott learns from his past failures. McDermott evolves. He may not evolve fast enough for us to get us to the promised land and win us a Lombardi, but I feel like McDermott has heard all week, you can't stop Derrick Henry. McDermott heard 2 games back-to-back about how bad they performed against the Ravens and the Texans in the middle of the season. And what they do, they just went on a crazy run. McDermott heard about what happened in LA. McDermott heard about what happened in Detroit. I feel like he responds with while other coaches are playing checkers, he's playing chess. Bringing in Brian Robin who's the quarterback they brought in this week? The former Raven.
I forget his name, but yes, we gotta look that up. Who's the Raven? Who's the Raven? Let's in the comment section. Who's the Raven that the Buffalo Bills brought in?
To be the scout quarterback. I mean, that's
Anthony Brown,
who did play for the Bills previously, but I just, is it his first AFC Divisional playoff game calling a defense in the NFL? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But does he have a guy who got the job, like you used to say, for doing what got him this job? He's an excellent defensive mind. I'm excited to see this game with both teams at full strength as far as their offense. Yes, I understand Zay Flowers is out, but they have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. The Bills have Matt Milano. The Bills have Terrell Bernard. How are they going to use Taron Johnson? Is Dorian Williams going to be in there on extra linebacker packages? Are they going to use a third safety? That's the type of stuff that I'm excited to see, because I feel like the weather, the loss, I feel like they have been thinking about this loss for a long time before they even played the Broncos. I feel like they were thinking about this game for a long time, and everybody was talking about how the Bills were disrespected. There's no All-Pros. Josh Allen's the only All-Pro second team, and the whole Pro Bowl snub. I think they hear all that stuff. I think they see all that stuff. You got Jerry Coleman from the Baltimore Reporter calling the Bills and Buffalo fans city of losers. I think they see all that. And I think McDermott pushes that all on them. And I think that Bobby Babich has stuff that we haven't seen yet. I know in the past, Sean McDermott, in games where we thought it was going to go one way, surprised us. Look at how Sean McDermott plays arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. Every single game is competitive to a point where the Bills could win every single one of those games, all the way back to the AFC Championship game. Every game since then has been a one-score game, or the Bills have won handily. And we're talking about the best quarterback in the NFL. So I think McDermott hears the noise, and I think he's going to be ready. Is there a little bit of concern? Sure. Is there going to be some hiccups? Yes. Are they going to get theirs? Yes. But I don't think it's going to be remotely close to what happened in week 4. What are your thoughts on Bobby Babich, since you asked me?
He's going to have to call the best game of his life. And I agree with you about 75% with Sean McDermott having a hand in the defense. But at the end of the day, Bobby Babich is the one calling the plays. And is he calling the right plays at the right time against a Todd Monken-led offense is something that I'm pretty excited to see. So we're going to see what happens there. And it's funny, right? Because when I look at the NFC, you see that, the Minnesota Vikings, for example, 14-3 all season, and they came first round of the playoffs, and then they lost. Why? Because regular season, I think Kevin O'Connell is a great coach, and his scheme is what propelled Sam Darnold to having the type of season where he had, right? But once you get to the playoffs, it's about the players now. Your best players are going to perform and going to show up. And I think that that's what happened in the NFC with the Rams and Matthew Stafford. He's a superior quarterback, and it showed. On this side of the ball, the AFC, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and these great players. And now with these great players, do they have to make plays? Absolutely. But now the scheme, it matters a little bit more in these games because these players are so great. Which coach is going to make the correct play at the correct time? Which coach is going to make the incorrect play or the incorrect call at the incorrect time is something that we've been seeing for the Buffalo Bills over the course of their playoffs with 13 seconds or with the debacles that we had during Sean McDermott's tenure. And we're going to see what happens tomorrow. And I think the better coach is going to win this game.
I agree with you 100%. Both great coaches too. And I do want to talk about Sean McDermott here in a little bit. I'm going to save it for later on. Let's talk about the weather. I don't think it's getting enough push. The national media obviously is always going to talk about how it's 8 degrees and stuff like that. Is this an advantage because you're seeing all the graphics about how Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson collectively the coldest game they've played in, I think it was 22 degrees or something like that. Do you think not just game plan wise, but how the Bills are constructed, how this team is built, what we've seen them do in big game situations when it's been cold or snowy or there's been conditions like that? How do you feel the weather plays? Do you think it plays a part in this game, and how much of a part do you think it plays?
Excellent question. I don't think, now, all right, let's put it like this. When we can look at it from both sides of the spectrum, in my opinion, I don't think the weather is going to play necessarily a winning or losing factor or give somebody an extra edge into winning and losing the game. But I do think that we obviously have to take the weather into account. And now it's the statistic versus the common sense, right? When I say what's the common sense, the Baltimore Ravens are the common sense. They line up in 12 personnel more than anybody in the NFL. They bring out the 6 linemen. That's like the Buffalo Bills and Alec Anderson, and then they have the 300-pound fullback. And what they want to do is they want to road grade you. So for a weather with this type of team, no Zay Flowers as well, right? So with this type of team and how they constructed, it seems as if they would have the advantage in terms of running the football and in this inclement weather that the Buffalo Bills have. But if you look at the statistic, and that's where the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen lies and have that advantage. When the temperatures are below freezing, the Buffalo Bills are 12-2. Josh Allen and the Bills are 12-2 when temperatures are below freezing. The Buffalo Bills have an 167 points differential when temperatures are below freezing. So we're literally facing the statistic advantage of the Buffalo Bills versus the common sense or the eye test advantage for the Baltimore Ravens. And that's what we're going to find out is who's going to take heed over who in tomorrow's game. I don't think the weather is going to play a factor.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I do feel like there is more of a home field advantage than with the weather, if that makes sense. The Bills this year, obviously 9-0 at home. The point differential is crazy. They scored 30 points, 8 of those 9 games. The other game was that New England game that they just looked disheveled and just looked disinterested in playing that game. But I feel like what happened in week 4, it was in Baltimore, right? The Bills, what'd they go out and do after that game? Who'd they sign after that game? Do you know?
They signed Amari Cooper October 15th.
Well, they traded for, but they also signed Quentin Jefferson,
right,
and Jordan Phillips. So one thing that we have to give Bean his flowers for is that he understood that there was a need for some of that. So this goes back to your preparation and your defensive scheme. I guarantee all week that's what they were doing. They were playing to stop the run. They were playing to adapt to a quarterback that is like Lamar Jackson. Now, you can't duplicate what Lamar does. Like, he's the best improv quarterback I think we've ever seen, and we have one guy that's right up there with him. But to me, like you said, I don't think the weather's going to play a huge part unless it snows, which the weather forecast isn't calling for that right now. It's just, I think it's going to be 15, 17 degrees, something like that. Very similar to what the Chiefs game was earlier today. It did look just really cold. But all right, let's talk about keys to this game. We kind of touched on it a little bit with offensive, defensive. Offensively for the Bills, if you're Joe Brady and you're drawing up the playbook for this week, what do you think the Bills need to do successfully, and what do you think they can actually be successful at, knowing the style of defense that the Ravens play?
It's going to be imperative for the Buffalo Bills to score touchdowns, especially in the red zone. I believe last week, even though despite winning the game against the Denver Broncos 31-7, there was situations where the Buffalo Bills had opportunities early in the game and in red zone situations where they had to ultimately settle for a field goal. They cannot settle for those field goals in those red zone opportunity areas against the Baltimore Ravens. The Bills are third in the NFL in red zone percentage and scoring touchdowns this season at 68%. They're going to have to be above that number, in my opinion, to win this game. Because on the flip side, you look at the Ravens' red zone offense, they're number one in the NFL at 75%. So if they get in the red zone, their statistic is telling us they're scoring a damn touchdown. So we're going to have to capitalize on our opportunities and score touchdowns when they get in those red zone situations. We're third in the league. Baltimore Ravens red zone defense is.
Nope, I think Akeem got frozen there.
Yeah, we back.
Okay, keep going.
That was done. We're just going to have to. We're going to have to capitalize on those opportunities.
Yeah, I just keep going back to that Lions game. Like, I feel, and that Lions game, I don't think was as close as that score. Came down to the onside kick and stuff like that. I don't feel like Josh Allen. I mean, there was missed opportunities where they had to settle for field goals. I feel like they could have scored 50-something points easily, 56 points in that game. And I feel like if the Ravens get the ball to start the game and the Bills defense can set the tone and get them either 3-and-out or a punt on their first drive, just start scoring points. And I was watching the Chiefs game with my father-in-law, and watching that team struggle for 212 yards of offense, I'm a lot more concerned about the Baltimore Ravens than the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, hear me out. The Bills,
absolutely.
The Bills have the ability against big teams, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Rams. Like, they went up against high-powered teams and went toe-to-toe with each one of them. Why would you not think that the Bills would be able to do that with the Ravens? Because of the 10 points that they scored back in week 4. This is a completely different Bills team. This is a completely different Bills offense than what that was in week 4. They were still figuring things out. The whole everybody eats mantra was just starting to take effect. The ground game wasn't what it is now. So I don't know. I feel like the Bills need to come out and definitely punch the Ravens in the face, whether it's if they get the ball first and they score a touchdown, or get them off the field and make a statement. And I think that gets the crowd going. I think that gets the players hyped, because the last thing I want, and I don't think we'll see this, but the Bengals game 2 years ago, they looked like they just didn't want to be there. I understand that was the DeMar Hamlin year, and they probably exuded all their energy in the game before that. I get all that, but they need to come out energized. And I think that Josh Allen feeds off that. I think the defenders feed off that. And I'll tell you what, these Ravens fans talking about the Bills secondary, they better watch out because they're toying with Christian Benford, and I don't understand why. But anyways, all right, defensively, what do you think the Bills have to do from the first set of downs on defense for 60 minutes? What do they have to do to set the tone, the keys to be successful on defense? And don't just say stop the run, because we know that.
Absolutely. Stop the run. But no, we have to. So last week's game, first possession, Denver Broncos get the ball, they score. Didn't show much resistance there, the first possession of the game. Last game of the season, was it last game of the season or the first meeting against the New England Patriots? Drake May gets the ball, drives right down the field, scores a touchdown, lack of resistance. The Buffalo Bills end up making those necessary coaching adjustments because the opposition isn't equipped to make the adjustments to counter the Buffalo Bills. And the Baltimore Ravens do. The Buffalo Bills have to stop something in the beginning. They have to show some type of resistance in the beginning of this game. You have to stop something. Why? Because if you don't, if they're successful running the ball, now the gap integrity is in question. Now the testing of the eyes and rolling right and rolling left and all those things now start to open up for the Baltimore Ravens. And that is why Lamar Jackson has open passing lanes in terms of the biggest percentage of open passing lanes of all quarterbacks in the NFL. That is why, because the lack of resistance the defense has towards the Ravens offense, it opened up so much things once they are able to run the football. So first and foremost, whether the Buffalo Bills get the ball first or start defense first, when they get on the field defensively, they have to show resistance. Stop something, because stopping something will leave certain things in the cookie jar that the Baltimore Ravens cannot implement or will not be as successful implementing because you're stopping the initial. So the Buffalo Bills defense, they have to show resistance early on. That's the start. Resistance, force on defense.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it all year. Arizona, Seattle, Tennessee, New England, all these games. You can't,
the Jets.
Yeah, you can't always rely. Now, is it a hallmark of really good coaching to be able to overcome obstacles, make adjustments, and just put boots to asses in the second half? Yes, it is. That is a hallmark of a good coach. But you can't do that late into January, like you said. They can't find themselves behind 10-0 in this game, because then your playbook, you're scrambling, right? Because your first few drives that were scripted didn't work. So now you're adjusting and doing all kinds of stuff. So I agree with you. I think that, like I said, defensively, if Baltimore gets the ball first, the Bills need to absolutely make a statement and say, look, we're here to stop you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I saw a couple comments in there saying that we just need to be physical. And I know you've harped on it for years. And you and me doing shows for years, we've both talked about the fact that this team under Sean McDermott at some point during a season is just not physical enough. They're just not aggressive enough. I feel like this is the week where we get that, because nobody is expecting it. I feel like McDermott is going to pull out everything that he can, disguise everything, do whatever you can to just put the fear in that offense that they're not going to be able to do anything. So, all right, let's talk about Sean McDermott for a second, a little bit more. And this is kind of, you can go and we can go however we want with this. And this is not, I'm going to preface this by saying, and I've been a harsh critic of Sean McDermott. I in no way, shape, or form think that Sean McDermott should not be the head coach of this football team, because who are you going to get to replace him? Number one. But if the Bills lose this game, huge if, because I'm confident, but if the Bills lose this game, that's 4 years in a row of not being able to get past the divisional round, being the number two seed the last 2 years, playing 2 home playoff games the last 2 years, 24 regular season wins the last 2 years combined. What does this say about Sean McDermott, if anything? And you can expand on that however you want, take that wherever you need to take it to. It's just you and me talking here. I think it's a conversation that some people need to talk about without the parameters of we want Sean McDermott fired. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can have this conversation without saying that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what's your thoughts?
It's really tough, man, because I love Sean McDermott, but I'd be pissed off with him in certain moments, in certain situations, and of games as well. And in my opinion, he's not a guy that you can fire. In my opinion, it's a hard guy to fire. We're talking about 13 wins in 2020, 13 wins in 2024. 13 more wins in 2022. Three seasons of 13 more wins. That's hard to do. That's hard to accomplish. And right now, I'm stuck between 2 coaches, one in the NFL and one in college. When I think about Sean McDermott, I'm stuck between Andy Reid before he got to the Kansas City Chiefs. Is it the fact that he could be a good coach, a great coach that just didn't get over the hump, kind of like Andy Reid, all those years in Philadelphia, where he was known as a great offensive mind and known as a very good coach, but he could not get over that hump, right? Until he got to Kansas City and he got the quarterback to match his style and to eventually take off. And now he is one of the greatest coaches of all time. Can Sean McDermott be that? Can he be that? Or is he James Franklin, Penn State head coach? A guy that he wins, he's great at turning the program around and winning the necessary games, but when it's time to play Ohio State, when it's time to play Michigan, or when it's time to play the big game against the great team and great head coach, he folds. Right. And that's that's how I think of Sean McDermott. And which way are we going to go? Is he Andy Reid that's just waiting to get over the hump? Or is he James Franklin that is a great program builder, but his ceiling stops here? And that is a question that I think will be being answered in tomorrow's results.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in the chat are saying, why are we talking about this now? I think it's something that a lot of people it's been on a lot of people's minds for a while. And I don't want to have the conversation. I mean, I hope they win tomorrow. I have a feeling like they're going to win tomorrow. And maybe it's something that, we don't need to even talk about for a few weeks, hopefully. Because I was talking to a buddy of mine. I live out near San Francisco, and their team's been up and down. Obviously, they have Brock Purdy. So it's always, last year we were comparing Josh Allen to Brock Purdy. But this fan has told me for the last 6 years, he's been jealous of our team. And I said, what are you talking about, man? You guys made the Super Bowl. He's like, because you guys have Josh Allen. Every year that you have him, you have a chance. Every year that you have a guy that is willing to do what he does, you have a chance. So I saw a comment in the comment section about Josh Allen and the window and all that stuff. So, all right. Hey, Rich, how confident are you feeling about tomorrow? We sort of touched on this. What do you give me the Akeem Nostradamus football lover, Bills fan? What's going to happen tomorrow? Let me hear it.
The Buffalo Bills win this game, man. It's been a lot of talk throughout the course of this week, throughout the course of the season, the back and forth with the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills fans. We suffered a week 4 loss against the Ravens, and that was the Buffalo Bills' worst loss in several seasons. Not of the season, in several seasons for the Buffalo Bills. And I think the Buffalo Bills defensive line is taking a lot on the chin this week. You can't stop the run. Derrick Henry ran for 200 yards. You show lack of resistance. I think the Buffalo Bills defense is going to feed off that negative energy and spin it to a positive light. And when you combine that with the crowd at Hallmark Stadium and Josh Allen, the fans, I think the Buffalo Bills will ultimately win this game. So in terms of my confidence level from like a 1 through 10 scale, I'm going to go a hard 8 right now for my confidence level with the Bills. The Buffalo Bills will get this game and will do the job against the Baltimore Ravens at home tomorrow night.
Was that a mic drop?
You heard it.
Literally a mic drop. I mean, people might see this and clip it and call me an idiot, but I think the Bills win this game handily. I think they're going to win this game handily. I think, like we've been talking, I think Sean McDermott, this is a Sean McDermott legacy game. Everybody's doubting what this team can do based off of something that happened 4 months ago with completely different set of players not playing, a completely different outlook on this offense. This team is humming. This team at home is different. This team at home just plays different. Sean McDermott doesn't lose to the same team twice. I don't care how you slice it and dice it. He's methodical. He's a creature of habit. He was studying film immediately after the Broncos game on the Ravens. He went to the office. I mean, this guy is dialed in. And I also think that Josh Allen is dialed in, and I think that he has a point to prove. He's got a chip on his shoulder. I don't think he cares about the MVPs and the All Pros and the Pro Bowls. He probably jokes around about it, but I think the Bills win this game, and I think it's not remotely close. There may be some moments in the beginning where we might have okay, here we go again. We're going to have to, make second half adjustments, but I think this team pulls away, and I think they're playing Mr. Brightside in the fourth quarter, and I think it's a wrap it on to KC. And then we got to start talking about that. So you guys drop your score predictions. If you're watching this live, drop them in the chat now. If you're watching this after the fact and you've stayed all the way to this point, drop some comments in there with your score predictions. Let us know what you think of the show. I see 47-31 Bills. Rich, Saturday nights. This feels right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know we haven't been around for a while, but this feels right. So I'm just going to leave it at that and let people speculate all they want. But this feels right. You and me on Saturday night.
It does. If it feels like home.
Absolutely, 100%. Anything else you want to get before we get out of here? You want to take us out?
Yeah, man. ARich, Akeem Richens, DM3, the DM3, Dave Myers. We are built in Buffalo. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. We appreciate everybody for supporting the brand. We have podcasts and vidcasts throughout the course of the week. We appreciate everybody that stays consistent in tuning in. And tomorrow is just another stepping stone in our quest to hoist that Lombardi trophy. And unfortunately, while I do have respect for Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, that's the team that's in the way right now. And whoever's in our way will have to feel our wrath. So we do believe our Buffalo Bills will be playing Mr. Brightside in the fourth quarter in tomorrow's game. And I can't wait to come on tomorrow night post-game show and discuss this victory. So DM3, this is not our end of our season because the Buffalo Bills will be moving on, brother. So take us out of here.
All right. As always, this is Built in Buffalo. Rich, I'm DM3. Go Bills.